Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today I'm going to talk to you all about Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of the game. I've been playing for about 4 or 5 hours, give or take overall, and I'm just going to sit here and dribble on about how I feel about the game, what I can specifically talk about, because there are some things that I can't. Also, I'm not allowed to show you any gameplay footage that I've played, but we should hopefully have some B-roll going over the top, so you're not just looking at this face all the time. If not, there'll be trailers. So, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. For a bit of background, I've played the original Xenoblade Chronicles for about... I didn't complete it in the end, but it was about 30 hours or so. Xenoblade Chronicles X I played for about 40 hours, give or take. Never completed a Xenoblade game, which is a bad thing. Never had to review one, though, so that's cool. And so, I'm relatively, well-versed in Xenoblade as a series, I know there's been stuff before with, like, Xenogears and stuff like that, but I haven't played those, only the Nintendo stuff. So, I was excited for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And I did have a bit of a wobble, though, because when I saw the direct and the, trailers and stuff like that, I was a little bit apprehensive that it was going to be a little bit too silly and, sort of in your face, and that they'd lost their sort of, slight, I don't want to say dark undertone, but mature undertone. And, but, sort of, I know there's always been a little bit of silliness with, Rhine time and stuff like that. So, I was hoping for a nice happy medium in between. And thankfully, I can say that my reservations were not accurate. The game is a lot better than I anticipated it would be, which is very, very good. The storyline and stuff like that is very involved. It is very story heavy. Much more so, it's much closer to Xenoblade Chronicles than it is Xenoblade Chronicles X, which was a little bit lighter on the story and more about exploration and stuff like that. So, whether you prefer that or not, it's up to you. Me personally, I think the story is maybe a little heavy, but I've just reached a point now where there is more gameplay going on. So I think I'm beyond the introduction where it's introducing all the characters, and there are a lot of characters. And yeah, I mean, the story is good though. So, it's not like it's heavy in terms of story content, but it's not bad. It's not like I'm getting bored of the story. I'm actually finding it very engrossing. And one of the things that I really like, and this will probably divide quite a few people, is the voice acting. The voice acting is, I would say it's strong, but what I prefer is it's really varied. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, it was generally nearly all American accents, which is fine, except for you could have Shulk's voice. That was fun. The original Xenoblade Chronicles was localized by the Nintendo of Europe team rather than Nintendo of America, so there were much more sort of British accents and stuff going on in there, and I liked that. It was kind of goofy in the way that it was delivered, but I still liked it. And in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, we've gone back. It's almost sort of halfway between. There are still some sort of stoic American accents in there, and some goofy ones as well. But there are also a lot more sort of regional accents from Britain, including a lot of there's a lot of Welsh accents, which is really surprising because it's not something that I sort of globally I think is particularly well recognized. I don't know, I've got a couple of, I'm in a bubble really, I'm in a British bubble, so I think it's fairly well recognized, but as far as I know, it's not in America and stuff like that, but I could be wrong. But there's a lot of variation. I've heard Welsh, Scottish, British, Northern and Southern. There's all sorts of really interesting accents, and as I said, there's also American in there and stuff, so there's a huge variety, and every time you meet a new character, it's really exciting to see them. You sort of think, oh, what accent are they gonna have? And usually it's not disappointing, and the voice acting, sort of the way that it's delivered and stuff, is also really, really good. It is, as I've, sort of alluded to, it is a little bit goofy here and there, but that's, sort of part of what Xenoblade is, at least it is to me. Annoyingly, there is a bit of a sort of a divide between the animation happening on screen and the voice acting though, and I'm not just talking about lip syncing, because the lip syncing is done to the Japanese dialogue, so that's understandable in games. There's no point in going back and changing all the dubbing. We've seen it in countless times of countless games before, so I'm fine with that. But the sort of, I don't fully know how to describe it, but the really exaggerated movements and exaggerated faces and emotions that you often get in a lot of Japanese culture and, particularly games and anime and things like that. They are somewhat prevalent, a bit more than I would like, but at the same time, a lot less than I worried there would be, because I don't personally care for that. I know a lot of people do, and that's fantastic. You'll be able to enjoy the game potentially more than I am when it comes to these cutscenes and things like that. I am still enjoying them, don't worry. But the voice acting seems a little bit more reserved than the animation. It doesn't seem to quite match up at points, and to be honest, I'm quite pleased, because I prefer, the slightly more reserved, slightly more sort of stable voice acting rather than these, ridiculously elaborate, over-the-top, overly emotional things. And so for me, that's a good thing, but it does feel a little bit weird in the cutscenes and stuff like that. But I think we've talked enough about cutscenes. The actual gameplay is very similar, unsurprisingly, to Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles X. However, they have sort of, I suppose you could say, refined it and simplified it a bit. There are, sort of fewer arts that you have available to you at one time, and you just press a button. You don't have to cycle through a menu or anything like that. It is generally simpler. I don't know whether it's personally better. For me, for me personally, I think it's maybe a little bit easier to understand. It is still really quite complex, and there's a lot of tutorials, but the tutorials seem to work quite well. They've been implemented in a way that works, very much to its favor. They pop up quite a lot, but at the same time, I never felt there was a tutorial that I wouldn't have needed if I were a new player. So they have been implementing a lot of them, but at the same time, the pop-ups are needed in order to properly, fully understand and appreciate the game. So it's understandable that there are that many in there. So, not a bad thing, but if you're a veteran of the series, you might be a bit bogged down. And it is good fun. It is really good fun to be, sort of getting involved in battles and stuff like that. It's that same, it's not really action, but there is, action elements and stuff like that. If you've played a Xenoblade game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the same kind of offhand, hands-off approach, but at the same time, you are still directly controlling, honestly, it's quite difficult to describe without actually playing it. It's similar to some things like massively multiplayer online RPGs, stuff like Diablo and stuff like that, where you have an auto attack, but then you have special attacks that you instigate. It's that. It was easier to describe than I thought. The variety in enemies is as good as it's ever been. Again, I've not seen everything that the game has to offer. This is only initial impressions, but sort of overall, it does seem really strong. You've got these mad, sort of very alien-looking creatures, and when it comes to creatures, you're generally going to be riding on the back of these things called Titans, and they're basically these giant beasts, essentially, and they've revealed that there are all these different Titans, and they come in various different sizes as well, and it's just genuinely, it's really, really good, and the setting is phenomenal. It's a proper hardcore fantasy ideal, and not like a typical high fantasy, sort of Tolkien-esque with elves and dwarves and stuff like that. There's loads of really interesting ideas going on in there, and it works very much to its benefit. The entire world is essentially a cloud sea. So it basically functions in exactly the same way as an ocean, but at the same time, it being cloud, and you can swim through this cloud and stuff, and you go down, you dive and salvage and all those sort of things. So, functionally, it's no different to a water sea, but the fact that it's a cloud sea really sort of gives it this very unusual feeling, and it's very much to its credit. It's an excellent, excellent kind of set piece, and it's just brilliant. I'll say it again, it's brilliant. The characters as well, they seem, they're fairly well developed. It's quite nice to make a change really in gaming, but there aren't many sort of typical sort of archetypes in the characters themselves. Obviously there are echoes of them, like Rex is a young boy and he doesn't fully understand the greatness that he holds and stuff like that, so there's that. But at the same time, the characters have many more layers to them. Rex is a salvager, for example, and, he's got to go diving, and he's been raised by a ragtag. He's an orphan. Again, that's kind of typical and stuff like that. But then you've got characters like Nia, and she's like a sort of a cat person with cat ears, and she sort of behaves like a cat. She goes like that, and she hisses and stuff like that, so that's good fun. And, you know, it works. You know, the characters are all individual, they're easily recognizable, you don't get them mixed up with other characters, which is good, and you just need to, you know, sort of see a couple of lines of dialogue from them to know everything about them, and that is really, really good character design and development. The actual visual designs, I haven't seen them in game yet, but some of the designs that I've seen of some of the blades, I don't care for. They seem to be a little bit all over the place. But I don't know how they get involved in the story, so I don't want to judge too harshly on that just yet. But no doubt in the future, when I've played a little bit more, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But on the whole, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is looking really good. I really want to just get stuck in, and, you know, the first time I played it for a good sort of 3 hours solid and realized it's time to go to bed. So, you know, that should be testament to the game in itself. It really grips you. The world is so unusual and alien, and yet sort of recognizable at the same time, because, you know, you've got your people, you've got your animals and stuff like that, but at the same time they're very, very different and unusual, and it's great. It's really engrossing, and you just want to go and discover more of everything. You want to do these little side quests, you want to progress the story, you want to see what's around this corner, you want to salvage, you want to do everything that the game has to offer, and that's really good. It's really good. I've got really high hopes for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 overall, and yeah, I think it's gonna be marvelous, but only time will tell. It's early in the game, there's plenty more to play, so let's see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you rabbit on and on and on about Xenoblade Chronicles 2, the new subscribe button we've named. That was a rubbish one, and be sure to check out NintendoLife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo-related content. Thank you again for watching, bye-bye.